Hey, how we doing? How's it going? Good to see you guys. Um, so I just wanted to round out these first 8 videos, right? So I talked about each of the different functions with the different human needs, not like TI versus FI, but the introverted deciders, the extroverted decider, the introverted observer, the extroverted observer. And then I've, been starting to go through each of the animals. We started with sleep, then consume, then play, and now finally we're doing blast. So blast has a special place in my heart, obviously, because it is my first function. The whole reason why I, like making these videos is because it feeds my savior blast. And I do it live because then there's a little bit of potential play, but like really I'm just blasting at the camera, about what I like to talk about. There are a lot of misconceptions about Blast, and there are a lot of very chatty people in the world who are not actually doing that much blasting. And similarly, there are some people who look like, they're chaotic skibs, but what they're actually doing is blasting their hell off, right? Blasting their face off, blasting the hell out of the. They blast. The blast is happening. So I want to focus on 2 people in particular when I talk about blast and sort of to give some examples of it. But before we get into that, let's talk about what is blast. Blast is taking your introverted observer, which is your NI or your SI, and pairing it with an extroverted decider, that is your TE or your FE. So there are 4 different flavors of blast. And really what blast is all about is getting the tribe on board with the plan. Sleep is getting yourself on board with the plan and having a system that works for you, right, with your TI or your FI. But blast is getting the whole group on the same page. And there's also a component of, because DE wants tribe validation, right? It wants validation in its purest form from as many people as possible. So it's looking for what works at scale. So this is getting into a little bit of function territory, which is not my expertise. What I mean by that is that I have my own definitions of the functions. They are not perfectly aligned with Shave's yet. I have confidence that over the next year, 2 years, whatever, we will both very, very much be on the same page, and I will feel very comfortable talking about the individual functions. But to be perfectly honest, their definitions are changing, right? They're starting to evolve. They're explaining it better. They're explaining their own process. And feeling is tracking values and emotional states. And we know that T is tracking reasons, right? So whether it's FE blasting that's looking for a consensus on feeling state and value and whatever, and TE is looking at the spectrum of reasons, what's important there is the sort of spread nature, right? So DE in general, there is no shortage of number of tribe members from whom they want input, right? So one of the big issues that I ran into, right, especially as somebody who's blast play, so I'm doubling up on that DE. One of my biggest issues is I often solicited the opinion of too many goddamn people. One person who I super, super valued was not enough, right? Yes, okay, if I got a ping back from somebody who I thought was extraordinary, I'd be like, yep, that's good enough for me, right? That one tribe member is at the top of the heap, cool. They set the tone for everybody else. I value their opinion over everybody else's, great, cool. But more often than not, because DE is really looking for a tribe consensus, They're like, okay, I heard from you, but now I want to hear from you, and now I want to hear from you, and now I want to hear from you. That can be a strength or a weakness, again, depending on how it's balanced in you. So, for instance, in some instances, it's really, really bad. So when I was doing the musical theater thing for a while, I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to get everybody to like what I was doing, right? And okay, well, that casting director I know likes that, and that casting director likes that, and my agent likes this. And when my agent submits me for these kind of projects, and that casting director likes that. And then when I'm performing for other people, I know that this kind of room tends to like this kind of energy, and so I can give them that. And you're like, what, dude, what? What about you? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And then my DI would be like, well, actually, I want to shut up, right? And then my DI would be like, oh, okay. And then go away. Anyway, what DE was saying is that person likes that thing, and that person likes that thing. We're doing the hand Muppets again. I should just get fucking actual puppets to do in these, because this hand Muppet thing is really weird. Anyway, beside the point, DE in its purest form wants a consensus, right? So that's like a bad example, but here's a really good example. When I was a couple of years ago, right, I was implementing a bunch of changes in my company, and we had 3 different branches. So we had part of what my job was is to figure out what system works at scale for everybody, right? Because when I went in to try to fix the things, New York was doing its own thing, and Philadelphia was doing its own thing, and Boston was doing its own thing. It was just kind of a mess. Each individual office was working really well, but as things became more digitized and less siloed, right, to use like the business jerk-off jargon phrase, right, like as things became less siloed, it became more important that each office was operating in a similar way to the other offices. There are obviously going to be some differences, right? So for instance, the travel compensation in New York City for the tutors is going to be vastly different than the travel compensation for the tutors in Boston and Philadelphia. Why? Because in New York City, nobody has a car. Everybody has a Metro card, right? So then the question becomes, okay, well, we have to reimburse people for if we're going to say that we reimburse people for travel time, which we should do and want to do, well, then how do we make that actually fair for all the offices, right? So for the people who drive, that's really simple. There's a million different little ways. It's not Waze, but like distance tracking apps, and it syncs with the thing, and it's a whole, right? It's super streamless, right? Well, for Manhattan, it's a little different, and it's particularly difficult because when people are traveling on the subway, they go underground, right? They literally are right? It's below. And in New York, you get cell phone reception and GPS locating in the stations, but not between. So we didn't know how that was going to affect, right? And there's a lot of like micro considerations, but my job was to go, okay, how streamlined can we make this for as much of the DE tribe as possible, right? And so then we said, okay, we can't treat Boston and Philadelphia differently. Great. Why? Because everybody has a car. So great. So my TE sees all of them doing the same thing. We have to treat New York differently because New York is stupid. But like those two, we can treat fairly the same, right? And one of the big sticking points that I was able to get past more easily than others is because my DE is double activated. I didn't have a problem lumping people together and making as large of a tribe as possible, right? Those with Savior DI are going to tend, generally speaking, to want to find individual exceptions for each individual human, right? Well, no, you don't control the individual, right? Don't control me, bro. Like, I don't want to be controlled. I don't want to be, lumped into your group, man, right? I want to do me. I want what works for me. I want to do what I like to do. And I don't want to impose that kind of structure or whatever it is on the rest of the tribe, man, right? I, as a savior blaster, I have no problem with this, right? The joke became my former coworker. I love this guy to death. He had a sticker on his laptop that said, "This machine kills fascists." And the joke was that I was the fascist, and I happily played that role. And we had a pretty extraordinary working relationship for a number of reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is that he was always able to give me the DI perspective. And I was always able to give him the DE. So he had TI and I had TE. We're both double activated on our T. And so when one of us would crawl up our own asshole too far, the other one could go, do what? So like if I get too corporate yuppie about something that we're doing, he was always able to go, hang on a second. No, I think we need to be a little bit more individualized with this. Like we need to make this more customizable. How can we do this? Let me figure that out. And sort of his job in the T realm was to figure out how to make things flexible and customizable so that each individual person wouldn't feel constrained by what was good for the group, right? And then my job was when he got too customizable mechanical, I'd be like, Alex, one person is going to care about this feature. It's going to be too difficult to implement forever. Like, stop. We don't need it. The one person who's mad about it, we'll deal with it later. I don't care, right? And we got a lot of ground covered that way. But all this is to say is that my blasting offered me a perspective. And I think that it's really easy to think of blast as like, again, the corporate douchebag, the T, well, this is what works this is company policy, right? But here's the thing. There are times when that's really, really useful. And in the interest of getting something going, you have to pick a thing to just start with, right? It's like we can't consider every individual corner case, whether it's the people or whether it's the outside possibility. Like we just can't at the onset, right? So I'm going to tilt this camera down, not too far because I don't want you to see that I'm not wearing pants. But I picked this shirt for a reason. As you guys have probably figured out, I like to, do a little bit of costume, a little bit of ography in these videos to sort of give the vibe. And I love this shirt for a couple of reasons. One, it makes me look super buff, but that's not why I picked it. The reason I picked it is I felt like this to me is blaster energy because it's a little buttoned up, right? It's not like a sloppy t-shirt. There's not a lot of chaos. It's got the collar. It's professional looking enough. It's got the button. It's like the sleeve, like there's a lot of clean lines, like boom, right? But it's also really inoffensive. I can walk into virtually any room that doesn't require a tie. And this is an appropriate thing to wear. I can wear this to a casual reunion, right? Like a 5-year reunion or something. It's just like at a bar, we're chilling. I can wear this to improv class. I can wear this to an audition. I can absolutely wear this to an audition unless it's specifically collared shirt and tie, right? But like anything, if it's whether it's super casual, all right, I may be a little overdressed, but like no one's gonna give me shit for that. And if it's super, if it's fancier, nobody's really gonna give me shit for this either, unless they're so far up their own asshole that they're like, no, you have to wear a suit and tie, you have to do the thing, you have to be the corporate robot. And I'm like, nah, man, stick it to the man. But like, I wore this to work for years, and it was perfectly acceptable. I worked in a co-working space. It was fine. It was fine. And I picked this because it's very, again, it's trim, it's buttoned up, the lines are clean, there's not a lot of mess and slop and chaos. So that sort of satisfies the OI. But it also satisfies that DE of this is appropriate to a number of circumstances. The greatest amount of people are not going to be offended by this. I could wear this to church and it's fine, right? And again, especially now because things are a little more flexible, whatever. But like, if I showed up to church in this and like, a pair of nice looking jeans, nobody would be mad. Not one person would be mad, right? But I could also show up to a barbecue, and also I don't think people would be like, that's a little weird. That's weird that you were wearing a collared shirt to a bar. Like, no, you're wearing a polo, whatever. And look, if I'm going full douche, man, I have been known to pop the collar from time to time. It is a look that I like. I'm not proud of this. This is absolutely a mode, right? So it's flexible too. We're gonna put that collar down because that I don't want to tell on myself. So that's just sort of the vibe of Blast. That's sort of how I see it. And I think it's a helpful way to look at it if you're just trying to grok, what the animal's trying to do. The two examples I want to use to sort of to drive this point home of like, what is Blast? Let's see what it looks like in the real world. I want to talk about Lauren Graham first. And then I want to talk about Samin Nosrat. Nosrat? Okay, I'm gonna pronounce her name right so that I don't screw this up. Okay, yeah, Samin Nosrat. Nosrat. Okay, she's the salt, fat, acid, heat woman. God, I'm fucking obsessed with her. I adore her. I watched the Netflix series. I just bought the book. It's blowing my mind. It's amazing. So I want to talk about Lauren Graham first. So Lauren Graham is Shannon's type twin, ENTJ missing Blast, right? So Blast last, so she is TESE play as the lead animal. And so she's play, consume, sleep, missing Blast. So I'm going to shorthand it to just watch the Gilmore. Like she's just Lorelai Gilmore. There's not any way other than that to put it. If you watch her in interviews and you watch the Gilmore Girls, they're the same fucking person, especially as it gets into later series. So as the series progressed, she became producer and an executive producer and started to have creative control, started to be able to really shape the character around her. And you really see as the show progresses just how blast she really is, despite talking a mile a minute. And so I want to use her as an example of blast versus play. So if you watch her and Scott Patterson, so he plays Luke, the two of them are like, they're extraordinary together. They're incredible. Because both of them are tapping into a lot of play energy, right? I see him sort of in the sleep, blast, play realm, sort of missing consume. He's kind of got that like know-it-all, I'm going to stick to what I know, lead sleep, thing. Whereas she is the skib, play, consume, math dynamic. What can I say? It's just how TV works, right? But if you watch both of them, they both are able to tap into their play energy, and it's not unlike the rapport between Dave and Shannon. Again, it's not quite the same. Obviously, Gilmore Girls is scripted. which is why, sorry, Dave, if you're watching this, it's why Gilmore Girls is funnier than your videos. Huh? But that's only because they have writers writing it and you guys are improvising, right? Totally different thing. But you can see that dynamic in both Dave and Shan's videos as well as on Gilmore Girls. Play just wants patter, man. We're not trying to organize anything. We're not trying to, there's no like point. The conversation is never productive, right? It just isn't. They're just bantering, they're just playing, they're just knocking the ball back and forth, right? She wants coffee. He doesn't want to give her coffee. She complains more about coffee. He says, why do you need so much coffee? And she says, because I need coffee. I need coffee now. I need it in an IV. You know that much coffee is not healthy for you? I'm aware that it's not healthy for me, but that's not my problem right now. The problem right now is that I need coffee. Nothing is happening there, right? It's just banter, man. We're just playing basketball. That's it. But you watch her in her scenes with Emily, her mother. Now you see Blast Last in action. Oh my God. Because what will happen is, so Emily has a lot of Blast energy. Again, I know we're talking about fictional characters, but for the purposes of the exercise, they all live in like this Lauren Graham state. Like it's really about her, right? So you watch Emily and you can see her like, well, like this is how I've organized the information for myself, and now I'm communicating it to you because this is how everybody does it. There's a great scene where she's talking about trying soup, and she's being very dainty with it, right? And I don't remember what Lorelai's response is. I don't remember what Lauren Graham says about it, but I was like, wait, no, stop, slow down. These are the steps that everybody has to follow. This is how you taste soup. You have to take 3 bites. You must take 3 bites. There's no other way to do it. Because this is what works for everybody. This is what I am now blasting to the world. The first sip is to get over the fear of trying something new. The second sip is to let your palate adjust to the novelty. And then the third sip is to actually render a judgment about what you have tasted. And you're like, whoa, that's okay. That's a lot. Sure, right? But the whole reason that their dynamic is so fucked up, leaving aside Lorelai's arrested, like leaving aside all of the actual given circumstances on an OP level, on a human level, the biggest reason that their dynamic is such a mess is that Lorelai can't fucking put thoughts together. Like she can't organize things down and communicate them clearly to Emily. And because Emily has so much Blast energy, right? She's like probably sleep blast or blast. I'm going to guess blast sleep. Because she has so much blaster energy, they make a great dramatic duo. But she's like, just Lorelai, use your words, narrow down, right? Think about what you're going to say and then say it. Simple. Just say what you need to say. And Emily's frustration comes from the fact that Lorelai is just fucking all over the place. But this poor Lauren Graham Blast Laster is like, but I just, okay, but you know, but the things and the abstract, okay, the concept, I gotta like narrow it down. Like, what am I really trying to say here with this? I feel bad that you are holding my daughter's tuition hostage. Oh, okay. That's a very clear, even though it's abstract, right? We're talking, it's a little vague. Like, it's not like a dollar amount, but it's like this concept that I have distilled down into this one thing. Now I'm going to communicate it to you. And now there's clarity there, right? Like you understand what her issue is with this other tribe member, right? But she can't do that. She waffles and she has the bunch of feelings, but she has to make the tribe happy, and right. and again, she's got the little bit of a glass lizard syndrome going on, but really it comes down to, if you have low blast, you are going to have to work like hell. He's like, I can tell right away who has good blast and who doesn't. Because in the emails, like when I send him emails, it's always, hey buddy, quick little paragraph, short little paragraph, maybe a slightly longer paragraph to illustrate a point, another little paragraph, have a good one, bye. Like, it's extraordinarily easy to follow everything that's happening, right? Because my OI has already broken it down and sort of chunked it out. But if you have low blast, right, and not only have I chunked it out, I've chunked it out in a way, I've organized it in a way that is digestible for the person who I intended to read it, right? Think of, quite literally, Reader's Digest, right? Or think about TV Guide. I just started watching Will and Grace. I'm very stuck in 1998 right now. You're just going to have to go with it. But like, Reader's Digest is taking a long book, whatever, and it distills it down so that the vast majority of people can understand it, right? TV Guide's little blurbs, here is one sentence distilling down what the 22-minute episode is about. You don't have to consume the whole thing, but this is what happens, right? Will and Grace go to visit an old college professor. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Karen hits on Will's boss, right? Great. I do not now have to consume a 22-minute television show. I want to, because the show's great, but like, I don't have to. Because the blaster, right, whoever has saved your blast, who chunked it down, already blasted it to me. Oh, great. I know what happens. Cool. So if you have low blast, that's going to be hard for you. And what's going to happen is emails, communication, whatever, it's just not going to have that kind of organization for the other person to be able to digest, right? It's going to be either a block of text or just like a bunch of like individual bullet points. There's a variety, whatever. And obviously this is a thing that you can work on, and just knowing how to write well, whatever, painting with a broad brush here, right? But anecdotally, at scale, you're going to see like, you fucking know people who'll just give you like wall of text. And you're like, oh, okay. And now what they're doing is they're leaving that void for the other person to organize. Like, I don't want to organize. I just want to info dump and then run away. And then it's going to be up to you to like parse through it and like figure out what I meant, right? So if you have low blast, I'm going to say like, watch Lauren Graham, just so you can see like how she wrestles with that. And so really, so you can see the difference between, right? Because if you were blast last, right, you have play somewhere in your top 3, right? So you have better access to play than blast if you have blast last. That's, again, just math, right? So watch her to be like, okay, I get that she's communicating a lot very, very quickly, but there's no point. She's just talking, like she's just info dumping constantly and expecting the outside world to organize it for her, right? So that's definitely something to watch and to learn from, and to be able to go, okay, if I were in this position, like if I was the person she was talking to, what work am I having to do to make sense of all this? And then you can take it one step further and go, okay, I know that if I blast it in its raw form, somebody else is going to have to do the organizing. So before I blast it, or before I just like info dump it out there, let me refine it. Let me like kind of know what I want to say first. And now I'm going to blast it. A second little quick anecdote, and I promise we're going to get to the Savior Blaster. I don't know if she's Savior Blast, but she has a fucking great blast, Summon. It's sort of it's the thing that I hate, right? It's where, the thing that people do where it's like, I have something really hard to tell you. So I'm going to take my time and I'm going to write out what I want to tell you. And then they sit you down on the couch to be like, I feel that we have grown distant lately. I feel that you don't respect me in the home. And I feel like you think of me as your maid. But I am not your maid. I am your partner in this home that we share together. And it's very serious and it's very thought out. It's overly thought out. Whereas to me, a Savior Blaster, I was like, fucking tell me what you need to tell me. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea that you felt this way. Yeah, let's figure it out. Oh my God, the last thing in the world that I want is for you to feel like I think of you as because that's incredibly demeaning, but also it couldn't be further from the truth. And if my behavior makes you feel that way, then oh my God, then I need to do something about that. All right, I'll tell you what. As a Band-Aid, I'm cleaning the rest of the house for you. Done. It's not a question. It'll be done it'll be done by tomorrow night, right? And then from there we can work on it, right? And so what irritates me as somebody who is Savior Blast is when somebody takes the blasting really seriously, but I also have to understand, right, if they're not Savior Blast, that is going to be hard for them. Maybe I should have a little more patience, right? So again, those are some anecdotes, a little bit illustrated pretty well. And now let's talk about what good blast looks like. This video is going to go longer, but whatever. I love blasting about blasting, and so that's just what's going to happen. Summon Nosrat. Oh, man. So if you have not watched the Netflix special, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, it's so fucking good, you guys. Like, on every level, it's incredible. But this woman is she's amazing. She's so cool. And what I love about her is that I don't actually think that she is Savior Blast. I don't think. I think she has a lot of play and a lot of consume. I get a lot of ESFP energy from her. In the set, like the masculine SE, she's like, oh, well, ooh, whipped cream. Like, just fucking digs her fingers in. She's like, right? So I think that she has consume as a savior, which means that Blast has to be her demon, right? That's just how the math works. But what's so cool about her is her blast is incredible. Like, if you read her book, she just lays it out. And the reason that I suspect that blast is a demon for her that she's worked on is because she talks about, she's very, very much an observer. She does not care about, it's not that she doesn't care about people, but people are very, very flexible to her. Yeah, whatever. All chefs do this, and it's not about it's about salt, fat, acid, heat, right? It's about the food that we taste. And her big life discovery revelation, right, is organization. Getting things down to its most essential elements. That is her big, like, oh my God, I have discovered the key to the universe. It's just salt, fat, acid, heat. And again, the other reason that I know she's not a lead blaster, for sure, guaranteed. She is either lead play or lead consume. And the reason that I feel so strongly about this is that she's like, oh my God, once you have this little bit of organization, now you can do the thing that I want to do, which is try fucking every food on the planet, because I have this guiding. It's like, okay, I'm going to do the organizing, but not for the sake of it. Like, I don't care about salt, fat, acid, heat for the sake of it. Like, I just don't care. I care about it in service of doing all the sensory gathering that I want to do in life, right? So, but when you read her stuff, she blasts great. And it's something that she's clearly worked on. It's clearly like not something that she initially started doing, that she developed over time. She became a teacher, but I think she's blast third. I think it's her hobby. She clearly likes it, but it's not like the first thing on her list, but it's the kind of thing she's like, I love doing. Like, oh my God, I really can do this. And I like doing it, and I like getting better at doing it. And when you read her book, or even just watch her speak about it, she's really compelling and extraordinarily clear, because she has that savior sensory that's informing the things that she's blasting about, right? She'll say, fat is an essential component of cooking because fat is what gives texture to food. Fat can create 5 different textures. Boom, 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 and boom. And you're like, hang on, shit, let me fucking hang on, pause. What did you just say? That was great, right? And it's that kind of a thing. And I love using her as an example, because for somebody like me, someone like Dave, someone like James Clear, like, if you want an example of a good savior blaster, just lead blast to hell, watch James Clear. Fuck Ty Lopez. I don't care about him. He's a douchebag. James Clear, watch him, because he has a great interview with Lewis Howes that, like, he goes on the show and Lewis will ask him a question and he just like has answers ready. It's like, oh yeah, I've already thought this through. You do this and this and this. These are the concepts. These are the things. It's never changing. It always comes down to these 2 essential elements. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, obviously, this is super obvious and easy. And of course, right? So he's a good example to look at, of like the LeBron James of blasting. But if you want to get somebody who's had to work at it, who like takes it seriously, but not overly like has to plot it out, and which to me a savior blaster is like, oh my God, just say the things, right? Samin Nosrat is definitely who I would recommend watching, because she's put a lot of work into it. She's gotten very, very good at it. And honestly, even I learned from her blasting, because she has so much consume energy that her blasting is really, really informed. And I'm like, oh, that's what informed blasting looks like. Cool. So just to wrap this up, I always talk about voids and clarity. Blaster clarity, I think, that's like peak clarity of like, this is the plan. This is what we do. This is what works for everyone. Boom, 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 boom. And even for somebody like me who has feminine NI, so you can tell that I am a savior blaster because, yeah, I go off on tangents. Yeah, I do this. Only occasionally will I ever go, as a side note, let me put a pin in this one thing, right? Let me just address this real thing, and then we'll get back on track, right? That's a very like blaster responsible thing to do, of like, God damn it. Okay. I'll deal with the chaos really quickly, and now I can get back to what I was talking about. Or what I will do is, if I do go on a tangent that seems kind of cool, I will always loop it around to the point that I was making. Her name is Samin Nosrat. SAMINNOSRAT. And the book is called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It is also a Netflix series. So you can tell that I'm not indulging in a lot of play energy, because it's not like I'll find a tangent and then be like, oh, actually, you know what? I want to talk about this now. And I just have abandoned the thing that I was planning on talking about, right? Which, again, going back to the thing that annoys me, but that intellectually I'm coming from, in my observation and estimation, It's coming from the fact that they know that like that person knows once I get going, I'm gonna go in a million different directions because my double activated, let's say they are blast last, right? My double activated gather wants to just go on a bunch of different tangents, and then I will lose track of the thing that I came here to tell you of like, this is an important thing we need to fix, right? Whereas for me, a savior blaster, as I'll be like, hey, listen, just like casually while we're doing dinner, being like, listen, this is awkward. Are we good? Like, I don't know. I feel like you've been a little distant lately. I'm not mad about it. Like, I know that we're both really busy. I just want to check in and make sure that like I haven't accidentally done something to be a douchebag. And then she'll be like, well, to be perfectly honest, you popped your collar earlier today, and I didn't like that very much. I'd be like, oh my God, yeah, like I was just goofing around. I had no idea that was so offensive to you. Yeah, I'm not going to do that around you anymore. Cool. Great. And then we move on, right? Because my blast, my organize for tribe validation has no problem staying on topic, right? So that's sort of the, like that blaster clarity. Here's the thing. Blast leaves a void. And the void is fucking thinking you know everything. And especially, God forbid you pair blast with sleep. God forbid. Now you really are a know-it-all douchebag. So, if you are a savior blaster, I beg of you, actually read a book, watch a TV. So here's what I say. If you have savior blast and you want to fill in that void, I honestly say, like, start by watching a movie. Like, put your phone away and watch a movie. And if that feels too daunting, go on to Hulu or Netflix or any streaming whatever and watch the pilot of Cheers. Just watch the Cheers pilot. That is a great way. It's fantastic. It holds up. God, 40 years later. 40 years later, that pilot still holds up, right? It's 22 minutes long. If you've never seen it before, great. You consume something new. Just watch it, right? Watch a 22-minute episode of television and just train your body to start like bringing in new information without feeling the need to comment on it, organize it, decide whether it fits into your box or not, decide whether or not it works, if everybody likes it. So, like, for instance, my favorite show of all time is The Haunting of Hill House, right? In a million years, I would have never thought to have watched it, but it happened to come on Netflix, whatever, a year and a half ago. And I was like, I kind of want to watch it. I consumed it, and now it's my favorite show. And I don't care. Like, I obviously want to tell people about it all the time. I think Mike Flanagan is brilliant, but it's also not something that I'm like, well, I watch it. And so that's the muscle you want to build if you are savior blast and have low consume, is just getting comfortable bringing in new information into your sphere. Because eventually, if you try enough stuff and you earnestly consume it, not like, I skimmed a book and I read it, like, bring it in. Really, like, take it in, process it. Eventually, you'll find something that's going to stick. And eventually, you'll start to build on those, those muscles of like, oh, I'm allowed to just have things for me. Like, I don't need to get the tribe to be on board all the time with everything that I do. I can just take in new information for myself, and the tribe doesn't have to like it too. Huh. All right. That's all I got. I know today's video was a little bit longer, but I like blasting about blasting. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. I love hearing your guys' questions. I love talking about this stuff. And I will see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.